In the heart of the vast African savanna, a young lion named Stix lived with his coalition, a group of powerful males who ruled over a large territory. Stix was born into this world of strength and survival, where every day was a struggle to maintain dominance. His coalition roamed the grasslands, hunting in coordinated packs and defending their land from rival males who sought to challenge their reign. The world Stix knew was one of camaraderie and competition, a place where only the strongest and most strategic survived. Stix was not the largest of the males, nor the most aggressive, but he possessed something far more important: patience. He learned from watching his older brothers and coalition mates, understanding the intricacies of territory, the art of the hunt, and the delicate balance of power. The pride relied on Stix's sharp instincts and his ability to lead during tough times, but he was still young, and his path to true leadership was not yet clear. The other lions saw him as an apprentice, a future leader in the making, yet he had not yet proved himself. He spent his days under the golden African sun, watching the horizon as the land stretched endlessly before him. This was the world he knew, familiar, predictable, and filled with the silent promise of what was to come. But Stix was unaware that everything he had known was about to change. The tranquility of his life was on the brink of being shattered by a series of challenges that would test his strength, his resolve, and his place within the coalition. His journey toward greatness was just beginning, though he could not yet sense the looming storm. One hot afternoon, as Stix lay beneath the shade of an acacia tree, a distant sound reached his ears. It was the unmistakable roar of a rival male, challenge, a declaration of war. Stix's muscles tensed instinctively, his keen ears pinpointing the location of the intruder. His coalition mates, including his older brothers, were nearby, but this was not just any challenge. The roar carried with it a sense of urgency, an undeniable force that could disrupt everything Stix had known. For weeks, rumors had swirled through the savannah about a new coalition of young males moving into the area, ambitious and hungry for power. Stix had heard of them, but the thought of a confrontation had always seemed distant. Now, it was no longer just a rumor. The new coalition was here, and they were not retreating. The land that Stix and his brothers had defended for years was under threat. A new force was rising, and Stix knew it was only a matter of time before they would have to fight to protect what was theirs. Stix felt the weight of the moment. His peaceful days of watching the savannah, of following the lead of others, were gone. The time had come for him to prove his worth. He could no longer hide in the shadows of his coalition mates. The call had come, and Stix had no choice but to answer. He would have to face the threat head-on, with all the courage and strength he could muster, or risk losing everything. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that YouTube can understand and deliver more of our content to you. For a moment, Stix hesitated. A deep, primal fear gripped him. He was still young, still learning the ways of the wild. The idea of facing such powerful rivals filled him with doubt. He had watched many of the older males in his coalition defend their land with unmatched ferocity, and he had seen what happened to those who failed. The loss of territory meant more than just a battle lost. It meant the end of their reign, the dismantling of everything they had worked for. As Stix's brothers began to organize, gathering their strength for the inevitable confrontation, Stix felt a sense of unease. He was still not ready for this fight. Could he truly stand beside his brothers and face these new invaders? What if he failed? What if his hesitation led to the downfall of the coalition? His mind raced with these thoughts, and for a brief moment, he considered retreating, staying out of the fight. It was easier to remain in the safety of the shadows, following the lead of others, than to risk everything in a battle that could break his spirit. But deep inside, Stix knew that if he did not act now, he would never truly earn his place among the leaders. The call to adventure, no matter how daunting, was one he could not ignore forever. Just as Stix struggled with his own doubts, an older lion, one of the veterans of his coalition, approached him. His name was Kazi, a wise and battle-worn lion who had seen countless seasons and challenges. Kazi had been a leader in his youth, and his strength and experience were well known. His presence carried an air of authority, but there was a calmness in his eyes, something that reminded Stixs of the serenity before a storm. Kazi had observed Stix's hesitation from afar, and sensing the young lion's internal struggle, decided it was time to offer guidance. "The path ahead is not an easy one," Kazi said, his voice steady and low. "But it is the one you must take if you wish to claim your place. Fear is a natural companion on this journey, but it is not the end. It is the beginning." Kazi paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. "You are not just fighting for yourself. You are fighting for the future of the coalition. The land, the pride, the legacy, all of it depends on you now. You may not feel ready, but there is power in knowing that the greatest leaders are forged in moments like these." Stixs looked into Kazi's eyes, feeling a surge of determination. The doubts still lingered, but the older lion's wisdom sparked. Something inside him. He could not shrink from the challenge. He was ready to step into his destiny. The day of the confrontation arrived, and Stixs could feel the tension in the air. The coalition gathered, their muscles rippling under the hot sun as they prepared to face the rival coalition. Stixs stood at the edge of the group, his heart racing. This was the moment he had been dreading, the moment when he would step from the safety of the familiar into the unknown. The threshold had been crossed. There was no turning back now. Kazi, ever the guide, gave him a final glance before nodding toward the horizon. "It is time," he said simply. With that, Stixs took a deep breath and moved forward. The distance between him and the unknown was closing fast, and as he stepped into the fray, he felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. They traveled across the savannah toward the territory in question, where the rival coalition had made their presence known. Every step felt like a drumbeat echoing in the young lion's chest. His brothers were beside him. Their powerful strides matching his own. The further they traveled, the more the reality of the battle ahead settled in. These were no ordinary rivals. They were young, ambitious, and ruthless. Stixs knew the odds were against them. The rival coalition outnumbered them, and they were strong, perhaps even more experienced in some ways. But there was no turning back now. This was the path he had chosen, and the time to prove himself had come. With a final glance at Kazi, who gave him an encouraging nod, Stixs charged forward, into the fray, ready to face whatever came next. The battle erupted in a chaotic blur of roars, claws, and fur. Stixs could feel the adrenaline surging through his veins as he grappled with one of the rival males. The enemy was fierce, their aggression unmatched. Stixs had trained for moments like this, but nothing could prepare him for the raw intensity of real combat. His opponent was a young lion, strong but reckless, attacking with wild abandon. Stix's mind raced as he fought, using the lessons he had learned from Kazi and his coalition brothers. His movements were swift, precise, as he dodged a powerful swipe and countered with a quick strike to the rival's flank. He could hear the sounds of the battle raging around him, his brothers engaged with the other members of the rival coalition. But Stixs was focused on his own fight. Each move felt like a test of his will, his strength, and his ability to lead. As the battle continued, Stixs began to see the difference between his coalition and the rival group. While the rival males fought with fierce aggression, they lacked the unity and coordination that Stix's coalition had. His brothers worked together, covering each other's backs, ensuring that no one was left vulnerable. Stixs had always believed that strength was measured by the individual, but now he saw that true power lay in unity. They were a force together, unstoppable. Amid the battle, Stixs found an unexpected ally, a lioness from his pride who had joined the fray to protect the younger cubs. She fought with unmatched skill and bravery, helping to distract Stix's opponent long enough for him to land a decisive blow. Her courage reminded him of something important. Leadership wasn't just about fighting battles, it was about protecting those who depended on you. As the sun began to set, the battle started to wind down. The rival coalition had been defeated, their members retreating into the shadows. Styx stood tall, breathing heavily, his body battered but unbroken. His first true test was over, and though he had faced many challenges, he knew that this victory had forged him into something stronger. He had crossed a threshold, and he had proven himself worthy. In the days following the battle, the coalition reclaimed their territory. The victory had secured their dominance, but Styx knew it was not the end. The rival coalition may have retreated, but they were not gone. Rumors spread again. Wounded but not defeated, the intruders were regrouping, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Styx could feel the pressure building once more, like the heavy silence before a storm. He spent long hours patrolling the borders with his brothers, every sense alert. The land was scarred from the conflict, and so was he. His body bore the marks of his first true fight, scratches across his shoulder, a bite on his hind leg. But those wounds were nothing compared to the change inside him. The lion who had once hesitated was gone. In his place stood a warrior preparing for something even greater. Kazi watched Styx closely, proud but cautious. "This is not over," he said one evening, as the two lions looked out over the plains. "Sometimes the greatest threat comes after the first victory, when pride blinds judgment." Styx understood. He knew that another confrontation was inevitable. The rival coalition had been tested, and so had he. But this time, the next challenge would be even more personal. The approaching battle would not just determine who held the land, it would decide who deserved to lead. Styx felt the weight of that truth pressing on him. He was no longer just a part of the coalition. He was becoming the one others looked to, the one expected to stand at the front when the final test arrived. The final confrontation came without warning. At dawn, the rival coalition returned. Not all of them, but enough to challenge the balance of power once more. They came not with brute force, but with strategy. They targeted the weakest parts of Styx's territory, drawing the coalition into a scattered defense. For the first time, the invaders were not just testing strength, they were testing leadership. Styx saw the trap. While his brothers rushed to protect distant areas, the rival lions pushed toward the core, toward the pride itself. It was a calculated move, one meant to divide and conquer. Styx knew what had to be done. He gathered the few who remained nearby, including Kazi and the lioness who had once helped him in battle. Together they raced toward the heart of the pride. What followed was not a chaotic clash like before, but something more focused, more brutal. Styx found himself face to face with the rival leader, a massive lion with a dark mane and a cold gaze. This was no reckless young challenger. This lion had waited, planned, and now came to claim everything. Their fight was long and punishing. Every movement was measured, every blow landed with purpose. Styx's body screamed in pain, but he refused to fall. He had fought for this land, for these lions. He had learned, grown, bled. He would not give it up. With one final surge of strength, Styx launched himself forward, using his enemy's own momentum against him. The rival lion stumbled, and Styx struck with all the fury he had held back. The challenger collapsed, defeated. The others, witnessing their leader's fall, retreated once more. But Styx did not celebrate. He stood quietly over the fallen lion, breathing heavily, the sun rising behind him. He had passed the ordeal, but the cost of leadership was clear now. It was not just about strength, it was about sacrifice. With the retreat of the rival coalition, the territory was once again secure. Styx stood at the edge of the land, watching the horizon as the first rays of the sun touched the savannah. The victory had been hard-earned, and though the battle was over, the weight of it remained in the air. His body ached, the scars of his first true ordeal marking him as a leader now, as much as they marked him as a warrior. The coalition gathered around, the older lions nodding in approval. Kazi, who had stood by his side through it all, approached him with a silent acknowledgement. Styx had earned their respect, not through his strength alone, but through his ability to lead, to see the bigger picture. The land was theirs once more, but Styx knew this peace was fragile. There would always be challenges, always tests to pass, but for now, he had secured their future. The lioness who had fought by his side approached as well, her eyes meeting, his with a quiet understanding. She had seen the change in him. The hesitation he had once felt was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence. As they stood together, side by side, Stixs felt something deeper stir within him. The realization that he was no longer just a member of the coalition. He was its future. The pride depended on him now. The reward wasn't just the territory or the victory. It was the trust that had been placed in him by those around him. Stixs had faced the greatest challenges of his life, and he had survived. He had proven his worth not only as a fighter, but as a leader. He now understood what Kazi had meant. True leadership was about protecting the future, not just winning battles. The days following the battle were quiet, the savannah calm once again. But Stixs knew that the peace would not last forever. There was always another challenge, always something lurking on the horizon. As he walked along the borders of his territory, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here, on the doubts, the battles, and the moments of clarity. He was no longer just the young lion who had once hesitated at the call of adventure. He had grown into something more. The coalition had not only survived, they had flourished. But as their leader, Stixs knew that his role was not just to defend what was theirs, but to ensure that the pride thrived in the years to come. His journey had given him more than just scars and victories. It had given him purpose. In the distance, he could see his coalition mates watching him, their eyes filled with respect and trust. Stixs had earned his place among them, but even as the weight of leadership settled on his shoulders, he felt a new sense of responsibility. The journey was not over. It had only just begun. In the following months, Stixs faced his ultimate trial, not against other lions, but against the harshness of the savannah itself. A severe drought gripped the land, leaving waterholes dry and prey scarce. As the coalition grew weaker, their unity began to fray. Old tensions resurfaced, tempers flared, and Stixs found himself at a crossroads. The lessons of his past battles seemed distant now. This challenge was unlike anything he had faced before. Kazi, once the steadfast mentor, succumbed to the harsh conditions, leaving Stixs to lead alone. The weight of his death fell heavy on the coalition. Stixs knew that despair was spreading among his brothers, and that the coalition's survival depended on his strength, not just his physical might, but his ability to inspire them to press on. It was in the midst of this crisis that Stixs truly transformed. Instead of waiting for circumstances to improve, he took action. He led his coalition on a daring journey to a distant part of the savannah, where he had heard whispers of greener lands. The journey was long and grueling, but Stixs' determination kept the coalition moving. They encountered dangers at every turn, rival predators, hidden traps in the unfamiliar terrain. But Stixs' leadership carried them through. When they finally reached a lush, thriving territory, it was clear that Stixs had been reborn as a true leader. He had overcome the ultimate test, and through his actions, he ensured that the coalition would live to see another day. Having led his coalition through drought, strife, and fierce battles, Stixs returned to his reclaimed land stronger, wiser, and more resolute than ever. The lush territory they had discovered during their journey was now theirs to share. This new home symbolized more than survival. It was a testament to the coalition's unity, their courage, and Stixs' leadership. Under his guidance, the coalition thrived. The younger lions within the pride looked up to Stixs with newfound respect. His brothers, once skeptical of his abilities, now stood behind him fully. Even the lionesses, who had been hesitant to place their trust in the coalition's youngest leader, began to acknowledge his vision. Stixs' journey had brought back more than just a secure territory. It brought hope, stability, and a renewed sense of purpose to the pride. But Stixs didn't rest on his achievements. He knew the importance of vigilance. Though the pride was safe for now, the lessons of the past remained. He encouraged his coalition to stay alert and prepared, to remember that survival required constant adaptation. Stixs also took on the role of mentor, passing down the wisdom he had gained so that future generations would be ready for their own trials. With each passing season, Stixs' legacy grew. He had returned not just as a victor, but as a true leader. The coalition would endure, and the pride would flourish, because of the strength, determination, and insight Stixs had brought back from his journey. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that YouTube can understand and deliver more of our content to you.